Please, 9 o'clock, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
For reminding me.
And must.
Please do remind me if I forget to use mine.
Will do.
No, I forgot what I was gonna say. Committee will come to order. I have a couple of things to say. We have 3 additions to the agenda. And Gordon is going to be, presenting us with a request to approve payment to the scholarship fund. And we'll put that right at the top of new business. And then Carl has asked that he be, given the time to talk about 2 new items of business. I also wanted to say that I heard from Larry Randall, who is on a 2-month leave, recovering from surgery. And so we were waiting to hear if he would be coming back at the end of February, and it looks like he will be. He says, on our first meeting in March, on the 5th, he has a doctor's appointment that he must keep, but that he intends to be here on the 13th. So that's very good news. Happy about that. Do we have anyone of our guests, so-called, who would like to have their 3 minutes to speak?
Here.
Here, yeah.
Yes, Artie Raphael. I spoke with Lisa and left a message, and they followed up my message, placing a cone on a slab of cement. I have begun walking up and down the stairs from the cottage up to the pub. And there's one slab of cement that throughout the winter, of course, covered by snow, but once it was uncovered, it had been lifted from expansion of the ice and shifted up. So there's only one cone, but both sides, if you're going up to the pub or going down on those stairs. I don't think they're going to be fixing it until the spring when the snow clears and they could hire a company that did the other slabs of cement. So be careful if you are walking a dog that it's there, and there's a cone there now. I came up those stairs and they had placed it after Lisa sent the message to Tom Tanger. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. It's important that we don't fall down. Anybody else? All right, we'll move along to approval of the minutes as prepared by Ina, the minutes of our last meeting on February 5th.
I move to approve them.
John moves, Yaakov seconds. Any changes? All in favor? Unanimous. Communications received and sent by the corresponding secretary.
None sent, none received.
You've got a real busy job here the last couple of days.
Well, that cubby hole over there is going awful lonely now.
Communications received and sent by the council liaison.
I'll be sending that monthly report today, but nothing was received until last meeting.
All right, we'll move quickly on to council committee reports. Margaret, who is our star with 3 liaison responsibilities.
And so this is a report from the Activities Committee, which met February the 11th in the classroom. The Activities and Welcome Committee will be co-sponsoring a mixer in May to give new residents a chance to meet with the current residents. Ideas for bus trips should be emailed to Carrie. She said she'd prefer you email her. And she also asked that you fill out the comment cards after each trip that you take. I think they're going to try to put them on the bus that comes in so that they can be filled out immediately. The Residents Council will be asked to approve the concept of residents sharing their decline with speakers for lunch or dinner. The guest speaker series is continuing with suggestions from many residents, and again, Carrie would love suggestions. The second fitness instructor is coming. In fact, she's here. She will be part-time. February the 19th, today, in the Community Connections will be the English Country Dancing with June, I'm sure. And on March the 19th will be the activity staff, both from IL and the Health Center. The art class that the SUNY professor was going to hold here, there will be it was a smaller enrollment than she expected, so she's only going to do it in the Health Center for this semester. So there's going to be 5 one-hour classes. Hopefully next semester there will be more, and she will do it in IL as well. March 22nd will be the Magician Comedian Dinner Theater, similar to the one Mystery Theater we had earlier in the at the end of 2025. And then today also taking place in the Health Center is the Love Yourself Day, where you can go for nail work, whatever. There's several things, hand massages, just go and enjoy. So that kind of thing. Let's see, any questions?
On the art side, hold on. Margaret, on upright.
No, I didn't, but that is another,
They don't have.
I'm worried about.
Right.
I don't have.
28.
28.
Great board. Hang on, that, so we can sketch, so we can see the network. It's a light post with a name. The name of the person. And they sitting on top of the sign. So and brush it and work on your own or with the activity. Who?
For a fee.
For
Well, the fee, I think, is for.
Yes, it's $12.50. And it's well worth it. It's a very nice, I'm sure well, there were 5, when you mentioned 5 people.
No, that's a wholly different program.
Okay.
This is for the one that I was talking about was the SUNY professor that's coming, bringing her class, but she only had like 4 or 5 students sign up for the class, so she didn't think it was enough to do both IL and the Health Center. So she's just doing the Health Center this time. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
No.
I have a comment. I attended the meeting and suggested as a possibility, I don't know if that's going to be followed up by the committee. We have now a huge wall, empty wall, that it's just inviting for just some activities of people to draw, to paint something, and it's going to be temporary until the wall comes down. But it's there, so I don't know. If people,
I don't think a decision had been made on that, so I didn't.
no, I just want to let people know.
That's an art for.
Carl with the physical plan, please.
Yes, the new chair is Tom Gilder. And he also presented a log of all the outstanding projects, so we know what we're working on. Smoke detectors units for the new cottages are on hand, but Tom says he's been swamped in past weeks, so he hasn't installed them yet. The bollards, the light fixtures in the courtyard will be improved as soon as, or replaced or fixed as soon as snow clears and we can get to them. Big project in roof shingles. We need to explore roofing the entire Woodland Pond. Architects are looking at various possibilities. We believe we will replace all the shingles with a higher grade but familiar project. Yes. The pool roofing has leaked and repairs are being made while the pool is empty. The blue lights that warn of a shooter or a lockdown, if you haven't noticed them, are pretty much in place. Tyler is doing the entire wiring project himself. We are awaiting quotations from engineers about a water filter to deal with occasional brown water. The village is going to replace many pipes in the next few years, and that usually results in brown water. So we can put in a filter that takes care of the brown water coming from the village. It has nothing to do with brown water, having to do with repairs internally. There was a discussion about installing solar panels. The economic benefit just isn't there at this time. Battery energy storage systems are now greatly improved, and we may soon become interested in exploring possibilities there. There was a long discussion about where coat racks should be placed, and the down next to the flex space is the preferred location. Finally, we need to deal with this. It was recommended that Matt Bianco, who has been coming to several meetings as a visitor, that he be approved as a council committee member. So I'm asking the council now to please vote him in as a council member. Are we allowed to do that right now as part of my report?
I don't see why not. So that's a motion.
Yes, I move that Matt Bianco be accepted as member.
Will second. Any discussion?
Member of the committee or the council? You said
Committee.
Committee.
Okay.
there you said council.
A member of the physical plan committee.
Oh.
It does say in the bylaws that we're supposed to approve all these committee members.
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
That's it.
Done? Okay, thank you, Carl. My report is next on the benefit fund. The meeting was yesterday. The fund balance was $214,448.99. This balance is down because Anne has been working to improve the payment system, which has been very slow. And successfully, a couple of payments have gone through. She has talked to people both in management here and at the community foundation to try to determine what these hangups are that the people who come to speak or to provide services funded by the benefit fund have to wait so long to be paid. The most interesting part of the meeting to me was Bridget Blum came at the invitation of the committee, and she talked about what she calls the Education Assistance Grants Program, which the benefit fund calls the scholarship program, but it's the same thing. And as you may or may not know, the benefit fund awards, or I guess that's the right word, funds $6,000 a year to Woodland Pond, basically for this Education Assistance Grants Program, $3,000 in March and $3,000 in the fall. And Bridget talked to some extent about how how the management is investing in staff. She called it recruiting in-house, that by making these grants available to staff members here, and this is not just nursing and human services people, this is technical people, a locksmith. We now have a locksmith as a result of one of these grants, an in-house locksmith. We have one employee who went through the HVAC training and is now, I guess, certified to do that. Another with basic electronics. So many of them are studying to be CNAs or in a couple of RNs even, but they're not just in the nursing staff. Bridget said that she adds that she puts money from Woodland Pond's budget into this grants program, but the benefit fund accounts for about a third of what her annual budget is for these grants. It was determined that for the next Woodland Pond newsletter, Anne would write up a little summary of what Bridget had to say about this important program. Bridget had actually been invited to talk about the Dick Berry Scholarship Fund, but she did not have information about that or didn't want to share it at this time, so she will come back and talk about that. That fund was set up independently by Dick Berry with the Community Foundation to become active upon his death. So this is something new that we will find out about at a later time. They talked about having an event for new members so that new members could become acquainted with all the things that the benefit fund does, possibly a Sunday afternoon get together. And I believe that Anne has a request for funding to present to us. We might as well do that now so you don't have to sit through the rest of the meeting.
Yes, I'm requesting that the benefit fund give $3,000 to the Woodland Pond Educational Assistance Program. As Molly mentioned, we give that twice a year, once in March and once in September. I don't know why we do it that way, but that's how it was requested that it be done. So that's what we're doing. So this is for our March $3,000 appropriation of grant.
Thank you, Anne. I move that the council approve the expenditure. Margaret seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. So I think I signed something and
Yes.
Anne takes it off, hopefully to be. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, back to Margaret with the argument for today.
Margaret Nighouse for Art and Decor, which met on February the 5th in the classroom. Just a couple of things. Carrie Kohler explained that there are 3 areas in the conjunction of the central and south wings with the bridge on the 3rd and 4th floor. They're going, I hope you understand, I've tried to explain that so you can understand what I was talking about. But they are going to be refurnished to accommodate game playing and some small meetings. So they're going to change the furniture in those areas. Carrie also gave the committee a look at the art scavenger hunt that she has developed with input from the committee members. And it will be published soon. Wants to do it while it's still cold and made available to the entire Woodland Pond community. And there's going to be a little prize if you finish the hunt. So what it is descriptions of paintings throughout the area that we live in, all floors and all hallways. And if you found them, you indicate that you found where they were and you will get a small prize. This question had been asked, but there's a lot of art that's been donated to Woodland Pond over the years, and we are not in any way obligated to keep all of that art. So if there's a question about that, we don't have to keep it forever and ever because we would not have room for it. The art from the dining room is going to be temporarily moved to the flex space. Any questions?
Temporary walls have not been getting much art. Has there been discussion about putting up more paintings on temporary walls?
Well, I understand that there are going to be some poles being placed on some of that. So if after they do that, then if they want some art, we can find something to put up there, but, and then also the suggestion that they do a mural, so the things are kind of in flux with that, so. We talked about it, but we didn't make it.
Could I ask you, request that you bring it up at the next meeting? Sure. Request
It
for
will be-
art.
It will be brought up because it's an ongoing discussion, but thank you, Albert. Any other questions?
I know with mental health and wellness.
Mental Health and Wellness met on the 13th of this month. The discussion, there was a small discussion on the MAID, the MAID, bill, and that it was signed. We're going, the next meeting, we'll be talking about the article in the New York Times. There are residents who are, at Woodland Pond who are afraid of aging. Being around aging people seems to be with the problem for some. And making friends is really hard because you make friends and then they die. So, it's different when someone from your, old life or where you used to live dies. It's different when somebody from Woodland Pond dies because, Woodland Pond doesn't drag out the death as a reminder to the residents. They put up the notice and that's it. It's okay to bring up death. Most say, it means that, those that are gone become part of, the Woodland Pond legacy. Older residents don't want the expansion that's going on because they're too old. The expansion that they say is for the young. As the young, I say that's not true. The Anika's group, the caregivers group ended due to lack of attendance, but the Alzheimer's group continues in a discussion format. They are looking for volunteers to take over one of the caregiver groups. The resident aides can sit with the sick or dying. That's being looked into as having an alternative to a spouse, give a spouse or a partner a break. Annika also wants to start an online support group if there's a need, and she'll be saying more on that at another time. The MOLST forms, the health center is very thorough in discussing the MOLST forms. And nurse Liz here has been talking to the Women Connect group about the MOLST forms and getting most people to sign the MOLST forms. On the MAID bill, the Compassion and Choices pattern with the group with Death with Dignity. It takes 2 doctors that are seen, that you see in person. You get a you must provide a written request, and it's within the last 6 months of prognosis to be seen. You must also be seen by a neurologist, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist for authorization, and no curative medication can be taken, and you must be a New York resident. And there's the doctors and all those who were recommended for being seen for that person are protected under the law and can't be involved in a lawsuit in someone's death. Not the cheeriest report, but it was a good one.
Any questions for Anna, comments? Thank you, Anna. That takes care of our council committee reports. Old business, I think we all know this, but I wanted to point out, since when Michelle was here at our last meeting, she talked quite a bit about the declining balance points. And she was quite confident, it seemed to me, that it would not change, that we would stay at 300. But she says, sent a memo that you have all gotten, I'm sure, which says there will be an increase to 350 points or dollars per month starting March 1st, as a result of 3 mathematical calculations they did, which showed that to meet the requirement in our contract, which says Woodland Pond has to provide us with 1 meal a day, they need to increase the declining balance. And she says our monthly service fee is set for 2026. So it won't be increasing this year, but in the future, it will be increasing, as I understand it, dollar for dollar as the declining balance is increased. I believe Yakov might have something to say about the vision mission. I didn't ask you in advance.
No, there is still ongoing.
Still ongoing, not all right. On next week, on Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the Health Center, we will have our first quarterly Residents Association meeting of the year. And I have sent to the council members a proposed agenda. I'm not proposing that these questions I included on the agenda be on the agenda. I just wanted you to know what I thought I would say in the opening. Basically, I would talk for 10 minutes about the board of directors. The board of directors has asked us to emphasize whenever we can what the role of the members of the board who are residents here, and there are 2 of them, Tom is one, has asked us to emphasize what their responsibilities are, and that their responsibilities and loyalty are, as they become members of the board of directors, their responsibility is to act in the best interest of the board of directors and not necessarily in the best interest of Woodland Pond residents, which they are. Otherwise, they might be able to lower our monthly service fee. Anyway, so we will start off. I'll start off by explaining that we have a lot of new residents, and I'm sure it's complicated for people. It's not complicated for me, honestly, to understand the Woodland Pond Board of Directors, the Residents Association, the Residents Council, 3 different kinds of council committees, and so on. So we'll outline that as best we can. We'll explain what a council liaison is and what they do. And then we will have presentations by 5 committees: the Activities Committee, the Dining Committee, the Health Center Committee, Art and Decor, and the Library. And the chair of each committee will talk for 5 minutes. And then there will be 5 minutes for Q&A, and that will run us through an hour. And with the exception of Art and Decor, all of the chair persons of the committees have said that they will have their staff person with them as well, because there may be questions that the committee chair does not feel prepared to answer. So I guess if there is discussion about this agenda, anybody would like to change anything or have a suggestion for how to do things differently, now would be the time.
I have mine. You mentioned the interest of the board of directors. It's not the interest of the board of directors, but the interest of the Woodland Pond Corporation. You mentioned perhaps it's
I beg your pardon, the interest of the organization.
Having spent a lot of time being interested in this issue of conflict of membership and interests between our people on the board and their census residents, I would like to explore the idea that perhaps there is no real conflict, and the interests of the corporation are having happy residents here as well as having financial security. And I think we should spend some time emphasizing common interests as opposed to possible conflicts.
Where would that be done? There's nobody.
Association meeting.
Everywhere.
I cannot quote the New York State law, but I know it has something to do with this. I'll have to confer with Tom later, because I'm sure he's by now an expert on this subject.
The board members are responsible for the best interests of the corporation, but obviously, part of the best interest of the corporation are the best interests of the residents here. So there's not a direct conflict, but it's just about where priorities are, basically. The priorities are still the best interest of the corporation, but they bring into it the residents obviously as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
This might be an oversimplification, but my basic understanding is that the Woodland Pond Board of Directors is primarily responsible for the finances. And we don't want this place to go broke. So we want them to pay attention to that as their number one priority.
Yeah, that is their number one priority, obviously, yeah. That's more what they're involved in. Michelle is more involved in the day-to-day activities of the residents here, whereas the board is the overall corporation and the survival and the fitness of the corporation as a whole, which is basically the financial aspect.
The best place where they connect is in the financial committee.
Right.
You know, that's where you see it happen. If you're really worried about the board, that's where you want to go to find out.
Any other comments on the quarterly meeting on the agenda?
I would like to be excused because I have a medical appointment and we don't get.
Sorry.
Thank you. All right, shall we consider this our document moving ahead? I will talk to the chairs and make sure they're set up. Where's Carrie? Carrie Collar had asked to be on the agenda, and she's not here.
Out for the week. Harry's out. I'm sick.
All right, well, she's certainly not here. What she told me she wanted to talk about was to follow up on the idea, follow up on the theme of the topic of our quarterly association meeting with the activities. Because she would, and Margaret might be able to speak to this, she would like to know that she is planning a activities fair, I think she called it, which would include, and she wants to have it outside because it's going to be huge, because she is envisioning having information about all 15 committees and all 50 interest groups. So she's an ambitious young woman.
The other thing that she was going to discuss is sharing our decline with the speakers that come in for taking them to lunch or dinner. So there was a lot of things on, maybe next.
I will be in touch with her and perhaps she'll be on our agenda at the next meeting. A major interest to the board, I think, or not the board, the council, is the message that we got that Fred Walensky conveyed at the last meeting from the board of directors, a very friendly invitation for how to increase contact and communication between the board members and the residents here. And one of the things, I'm just going to report personally here, one of the things that was on the list of suggestions that they had was that board members might come here for lunch with residents once a month. And we thought this was a great idea, and we had a couple of counter suggestions, like for maximum exposure, perhaps we could have like a coffee hour where the board members would meet with as many residents who wanted to show up rather than just a few people who could have lunch. Anyway, all of a sudden there was a lunch announced that was to take place yesterday with 5 residents. I happened to be standing at the concierge desk when the sign-up sheet was put out. So I got on the list. Wayne was there. And we had a very nice lunch yesterday with 3 board members. Sally Cross, the chair, Mac Doris, a lawyer who lives on Huguenot Street, and Kristen Johnson, who has been a compliance officer for Sloan Kettering and a bunch of healthcare organizations, I believe, in her career. She lives in High Falls. And she and her wife or partner are on the waiting list here. And we had a very nice, easy conversation. The residents, in addition to Wayne and me, were Ray Stein, Joan Hollister, and Suzanne Orchowski. And I'm sorry to tell you this today, Tom, but Ray made the point that she was personally disappointed that the 2 resident directors prior to their resignation were men, and the 2 new ones were also men, because she pointed out 2/3 of the residents here. What? Anyway, they were somewhat surprised by that, to think about that. We talked a little bit about some of the items that the board had suggested, including what did we think the primary concern of the residents here at this time is. And I should back up and say that a week ago from today, we had what I billed as an executive session, and that was not correct. It was not designed to be in any way confidential or to talk about personalities of individuals or finances. It was a work session. Michelle helped me relabel it as a work session of the council to figure out how we were going to respond to the board's message. And at that time, we talked about what we thought the residents' main concern was. And we felt that it was the fear that the health center might be full at a time when a resident might need it. So I passed that on to them, and we'll also pass that on to them in a written communication. I'm going to ask Wayne if he has anything else he'd like to add from the lunch.
It's very pleasant. There's a lot of talk about where you used to live, where you live now, what you used to do with your grandchildren, go to that school in Brooklyn.
Lots of talk about Brooklyn. I think they intend to keep doing this, and while I still like the idea personally of having sort of a coffee hour event, I think that the intimacy of having the small group at lunch was very nice. So, any comments of questions about that work session or?
I just want to keep the same discussion going about lack of conflict and the fact that 2 different groups, pairs of board members are about to move into Woodland Pond somewhere down the line, says something wonderful about the ultimate lack of conflict.
The other thing that the concern that came up suggested was also, if we're not renters and we're not owners, what are we and what are our rights is a concern that came up at that meeting.
That's right. So I'm hoping that Fred can draft a response to the board as a result of our work session, and any comments further that we have to make, that we make today.
The concerns,
It's on.
the concerns, are already included in my report that's going out to them today. If there's anything else that we want to send to them, we'll have to talk about that, and I'll have to put that in a separate report. Was there anything else that?
I was thinking that the response to their message would be a separate report. And was that just my thinking, or what does the council think about that?
You've given me time on the agenda in a little while. I have some motions, and I wanted to make a motion of a response that we will give to them, thanking them for their new attitude. I could read it now, and you could think of that.
Yeah, I already did put something in the report, but we could possibly reword it depending on what you have.
May I read it now? The motion I wanted to make was, I move that our corresponding secretary send a note to Sally Cross, president of the Woodland Pond Board of Directors, commending the board for its recent efforts to strengthen contact and understanding between the board and Woodland Pond residents, as exemplified by the recent inauguration of mutual contacts through periodic luncheons. We sense a growing willingness of the board towards mutual closeness, and we appreciate it. And I'm presenting that as that our corresponding secretary pass it on to.
Okay, so would this be through a separate letter through the corresponding secretary, or would this
Yes.
go into,
From the liaison.
or would this go into my liaison?
No,
report?
this would be a separate, because your liaison is not usually something that the board has stated. We haven't done that in the past, at least. It's a report of everything we've done, but this is a direct letter to them on one specific point.
So your proposal is that the corresponding secretary send a separate.
Yes.
message.
Okay. Second. Second the motion.
I think,
I think that's fine. I can still mention something in my report, but it's just more casual, but then the secretary will send a more formal thank you to them.
I don't want to put Fred on the spot, but I think it would be very nice if you would just briefly go through what your report is to the board. That's one of the things we discussed in the little work
Okay.
session that we had.
I didn't bring it with me. So basically, I can just, off the top of my head, I thank them for their reaching out to have more communication. I mentioned the two concerns, and then I just talked about activities that have been happening in Woodland Pond past month. I mentioned about the renovations and other, highlighted some activities basically. But I can send you a copy of my report when I submit it today. Well, it's going out today.
Margaret is suggesting that you send a copy of the report to the council members every month, but assuming one more month anyway, Larry's coming back.
Yeah, it's due today, so I have it written up. I'll send it to Lindsay and I can copy everybody or just send it separately to everybody. I'll get it to everybody, sure.
Right.
No problem.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. I'm going to read it because I think the language is important. And this is from Carl. I move that our corresponding secretary send a note to Sally Cross, president of the Woodland Pond Board of Directors, commending the board for its recent efforts to strengthen contact and understanding between the board and Woodland Pond residents, as exemplified by the recent inauguration of mutual contacts through periodic luncheons. We sense a growing willingness of the board toward mutual closeness, and we appreciate it. Shall we have a vote? All in favor? Unanimous? So I'm going to pass this to John.
How long do you have it? Oh, John.
I'll make the talk.
Are there other items on the list of the suggestions the board made that we want to discuss and get into them? Not right now. Okay. I want to talk, and I can chime in here on the Seder dinner, which brings me to the fact, I found it here, that I had a conversation at her request. Well, maybe I didn't bring my notes, with Cameron she said she wanted to speak to me, and I was curious. And one of the things that basically she wanted to establish, I think, a personal relationship. I had met her, but I didn't know her. And as we discussed at the last meeting, I invited her to come to this meeting, but she is in London, so she was not able to go. But we talked about a number of things, and one of the things she told me was that she had been assigned, I guess you could say, she had taken on the responsibility for the Seder dinner, which has happened every year for 2 years, I believe, more than that, and has been managed by the Shalom Space Group.
Okay, first of all, the Seder's been going on since Woodland Pond opened. Not consistently every year and not made into a big thing, but it has been going and continuing. 4 years ago, it was held in the game room, and one person organized it, ran it, and there was about 20 people. And it went over, and that was good. The following year, I got involved and had been involved ever since. And it got into a more grander scale. Shalom Space was only recognized because of me being involved with Shalom Space. It had nothing to do with Shalom Space. We pitched it because most of the attendees to Shalom Space events are Jewish. Therefore, they would assume to come to a Seder. However, the Seders are open to everyone. And we had 60 people last year, of which about 28 of them, I believe, were non-Jews, which was a big deal. And I think they learned a lot. Some people afterwards, and what I heard leading up to this, was they wished it was more of an educational thing than a fun dinner. And we do we read the Haggadah, we do the traditions, we have a great time and a good meal, and that was it. This year, and so it was myself and Evelyn Rosenthal. That was the committee. It just happened 2 Jews are doing it. Why? Because that's our thing. This year, I backed out. I'm going to be with my family, and so that has become a pressing moment. Evelyn was a little overwhelmed, and time is running short this year. The first Seder is April 1st, so she backed out. But just before that, Cameron came to me and said, we need to have a Seder committee. It has to be in a committee so that everybody, Jew or Gentile, whoever is on the committee, is doing it, not just one person or 2 people. And it, for some, it's a lot of work. For some, it's not. For some, it's moderate work. It depends on what you put into it. So Cameron came to me and I said, it falls under the auspices of interfaith, because when Shalom Space was started, they wanted, Michelle said, somebody from the people starting Shalom Space has to go to Interfaith and has to tell Interfaith what they're planning. I got nominated and elected to do that. So I went to the meetings. I told them as things happened. And when we were set to start Shalom Space, they said you need a full-time representative on the Interfaith Committee. So once again, I got elected. So that's how I got involved with Interfaith, and that's my connection to Interfaith. However, Shalom Space never officially ran the Seder itself. Now we need to form a committee. Joe Sanders, Tamar Oppler, and I have all backed out of Shalom Space. It's now run by a committee. So I went to the committee and said, you need to form a committee to do the Seder. So the committee that runs Shown Space said they would run the Seder. Then they kind of backed out, so it now has come back via Cameron through, or from Michelle through Cameron to, Interfaith, that the Seder has to be a committee. And it has to be made the obvious thing is the Jewish residents should be that committee. But they would like to see it mixed, if possible. And so that's where things stand now. I'm going to pass it back to Molly because at this point, scheduled for this year, there is no Seder planned. That could still happen, but as far as I know at this point, there is none. However, one of the things that Interfaith is planning on doing will be a educational Seder where we do a Tree of Faith presentation, which we do. I try to do monthly. I haven't had them in a couple of months due to weather, but we're going to do it as an educational program where we pass out the Haggadah, we explain what the book is. We talk about everything that's needed. We pass around, if I can make everything, we'll make samples and pass it around so you can taste what the charosis is, what the mora is, and so on. So that's where things stand. So educational, not going to be on the day of the Seder, it'll be at another time so that we have more people who can be involved. And we're trying to get people involved who want to be involved.
Well, John, I think, let me just say one thing before John. Cameron was very clear to me that management needs to have a contact in order to produce the Seder dinner. And that the way to do that, management decided, was through the Interfaith Committee. So management passed on the responsibility for the dinner to the Interfaith Committee, which is meeting next Monday. At that time, I imagine it'll be on the agenda. I think it's possible. I don't know. I know that it's
on the agenda.
Yeah. That a subcommittee might be formed by the Interfaith Committee that's able to put the Seder dinner together or not. We will stay tuned. John.
You almost answered my question. Why is it a committee and not an interest group? And if it's a committee, then all the members have to be approved by the council.
No, the rest of the committee is not.
Okay, only the council committee. So it's not a council committee, but
You're talking about the Interfaith Committee.
no, the committee, the Seder committee. We've been talking. See, yeah, but we've been talking about it as a committee, and therefore the committee has to be formed. So
I think if there is a committee for the Seder dinner, correct me if I'm wrong, and it would be functioning as a subcommittee of the Interfaith Committee.
Okay, all right, I'm clear.
I would suggest avoiding the term committee. Just make it into a task force or a task group of whatever committee it falls under. And because otherwise it gets complicated in the sense that people are thinking that this is like you have to have representation and you have to have approvals and so on. It's a
So
project.
that's a suggestion to Ina to take to the meeting on Monday.
Yeah, make it a task group that is working on that particular project. That's it.
Any comments from council members or from the audience?
Thank you. My name is Donald Carraher. My question is there an oversight? I just don't know. Is there a particular oversight function at Woodland Pond for religious ceremonies?
No, not that I'm aware of at all.
Okay, so yesterday was Ash Wednesday. So who organized that and brought in an officiant or had structured a liturgy or something like that? I mean, how was that done?
My understanding is the interfaith committee, scheduled 2 services, one by a Catholic priest who was brought in from the Catholic Church in New Paltz, and one was an Episcopal service, which was, managed by a resident who's an Episcopal priest.
Thank you. So those were religious ceremonies.
Correct.
Okay. I've been to Christian seders, which is not a contradiction, because there is a definite line of tradition that comes from Judeo traditions that have been adopted by Christian faiths. So if there were a seder, would that be a Jewish religious ceremony? Because the instructional seder, I don't know that it would, the Jewish members would consider it a religious ceremony. It would be a presentation of Jewish tradition, which is also a very good thing that I would like to participate in too.
Doing, excuse me, doing the Tree of Faith presentation as we're planning it now is in fact, an open everything. It has nothing, it's educational. Doing the Seder, it's not necessarily considered a religious ceremony. It's more of a, can you say, traditional explanation of the meal for the holiday for the 8 days. It's the explanation.
Okay.
It's it's not like Yom Kippur, which is solemn and you're in the temple and so on. This is there's 300 different ways to have a Seder, and there are 5,000 different Haggadot to read and understand, and there are moderns, there are traditionals, there are, all races and everything. So that's the best I can answer.
No, thank you very much. I just wanted to respect that the Seder has been a Jewish spiritual ceremony, and making it an informational event would be like, I don't know, having Santa Claus come. It's not the same, but it's part of the tradition.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's fine. I just didn't know if it was considered a religious event or not. Okay, thank you.
I'm very happy that this discussion came up because it relates to something that I wanted to discuss that I'll throw in now, since I can, about overreach. There was a question of whether or not the Interfaith Committee should become one of our committees, and it should become council committee. It isn't. And I'm very much worried about overreach. Tyler is about to have an Episcopalian service next door there. Do we need to send a visitor there to make sure he's not preaching something that could cause trouble for a 501c3 or for anything else? And somehow this Seder business is getting complicated in who's gonna do it. Okay, Michelle seems to have suggested strongly, it will be very nice to do it. And by hook or by crook, somewhere it's gonna come out. I don't think we have to take charge of it at this point, because nobody has asked us to take charge of it. That's all I wanted to say on this issue right now.
I certainly am not suggesting, I'm not suggesting that the council should take charge of it, but the council does have oversight over the committees.
No.
It's not a.
The Interfaith committee is a group, it is not a committee of the council, and we don't have charge over it.
Council has oversight over all the committees.
All the committees,
Whether they're
I don't have the bylaws here with
Not a
me.
council committee, so there's a different structure.
This is
Still
very-
under under the council.
For those of you who are trying to keep this straight, including me, there are three different kinds of committees. There are council committees, and Tom, edit me if I'm wrong. Council committees which were created by the council. Combined committees, and only two of those, activities and sustainability, which were created both by management and the council together. They saw the need, and they did it. And then what are called resident committees, which were formed by residents. But, oh good, maybe, Margaret has the bylaws. Tom can give it a short.
Yes, just to make sure, council committees are mandated by the bylaws. It's in the bylaws, those committees have to exist, so that's why they're council committees. Combined committees and resident committees are formed on the request of the council or by groups with the council approving. So it's not, let's say, bound by the bylaws. And the fourth one is ad hoc.
Which one?
Ad hoc.
Oh.
The council has appointed liaisons to all committees except two. Interfaith is one, and,
Road.
road. No,
Road.
political affairs.
Is the current events committee a committee?
No, it's an interest group.
It's interest groups.
We have 50 interest groups. I don't think we want to get in. No. So I think we will count on Ina to report at the next meeting what happens at the interfaith committee on Monday, because we.
converting.
We do not have a liaison to the interfaith committee. Okay, all sorts of interesting things going on here. I believe Carl has one more thing that he wanted to bring up, is that right?
A motion, an additional motion, that our minutes no longer list the names of visitors. So moved.
I would appreciate it if you would speak to this motion, why you think it's important.
I discussed it with the secretary. She said it would save her effort, and there is no bylaw, Robert's Rules of Order statements requiring it. It's basically unnecessary.
Is there a second? We're supposed to, okay, Fred is seconding the motion.
First of all, it shows activity from those who are involved here in the residents, having all the names of people. And for me, it used to be I had to alphabetize them, and now I don't have to alphabetize the names, so it's easier. But I think having the names of who is here, especially those who come to present an idea and show support and bring others, it shows involvement of the community. And I think especially if you have future residents who go and look at our minutes, if they do, they can see that, you know, hey, we had 30 they had 30 residents and 3 visitors today, or however many on Zoom or whatever. I think it should be kept.
Jakob?
Whether Robert's rules allow or mandate, I don't think it's necessary to exclude them. I mean, I don't see the benefit of doing this. So I support Rhino's position, but, you know, there is no big deal about posting them.
More discussion?
Yeah, one more thing. When it comes to the nominating committee, if they see a bunch of people who are here on regular meetings, they'd be the first people I attack to join the residents' council.
I had the same thought. We do have some faithful people here that I appreciate.
And if you're thinking about it, think hard because they need your help when it comes.
Are we ready for the motion? All in favor? Carl?
She said she wanted it before.
I did not, I said it would make my life easier, I didn't say I wanted it.
I think the motion has unanimously failed, but thank you, Carl. We're trying to do a good thing here. Anything else from the council? Shall we move on to the closing years session? Any comments from anybody?
Online.
Alema.
Hi, good morning. Several years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years in a row, we had a mock Seder. I'm not sure who organized it, but there were tables in the pack. You had to sign up. And on your Seder plate, you had the elements of Seder, and everything was explained. It was really wonderful. Everybody who went, Jew and non-Jew alike, benefited from it. So it's just a question of what few people could organize it.
Thank you, Alema. Ina wants to know if you're volunteering.
You're gonna get somebody with Muslim names to organize a mock Seder? I don't think so.
Listen, you eat kosher.
Well, you could help with Ramadan then, which started yesterday.
Haven't eaten yet, I'll do it.
Other comments? Are we ready to adjourn?
I move.
John moves, Jacob seconds, all in favor. Meeting is over at 11:07. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.